everyone, it's Emily Fox. Today's video is going to be all about book recommendations that I have seen going around on TikTok and letting you know which ones I think are worth the hype and which ones you can probably skip. Obviously, I can only talk about the ones that I have personally read, but feel free to agree and disagree with me in the comment section. I'm going to start with the one that I have seen the most on TikTok, and it is easily The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I definitely think this one is worth the hype. However, I think I've seen it on at least 5 videos recommending it as an underrated book, which don't think it's underrated, but it's definitely worth picking up. Madeline Miller tends to write retelling mythology, and obviously this one is following Achilles and his love with Patroclus, and it's a stunning book, beautifully written. I highly recommend the audiobook or the physical book. I did try both of them. I personally put it down for no reason at midpoint, and I call it my pile of shame, and then eventually went back to it and couldn't understand why I didn't finish in one go, because this is so good, absolutely worth the hype. However, I wanted to sneakily add, check out Circe by the same author. I think it's even better, obviously to each their own, but you're following Circe. She's a witch. There's a little bit of a revenge story in here. I highly recommend also the audiobook because the narrator, her voice is amazing. So absolutely worth the hype. Definitely check these out if you are someone that enjoys fantasy, and they're both standalone, so it's just one and done. Another one that I've seen a lot on TikTok is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Jenkins Reid. Yes, worth the hype in my opinion. Personally really enjoyed it. It's really not my usual cup of tea. It's kind of historical fiction and romance. You're following Evelyn Hugo, an old Hollywood star, and she's first time in her whole life telling her life story through her 7 husbands, and you kind of get to know who her true love was and blah blah blah. I personally really enjoyed it. I read it. I had like little tears in my eyes, so definitely would recommend that one. Worth the hype. Let's go with one that I don't think is worth the hype. We Were Liars. I actually unhauled. I got rid of the book because I didn't really care for it. It's a YA mystery. I did like the setting because you're on is it an island, at least a little beach town, and it's perfect summer vibes if you want to read a book during the summer at the beach. But I didn't really care about the story. I was not surprised about the twist, which is probably what's going to make it a hit or a miss depending. And yeah, I kind of just was left really underwhelmed because there was a bunch of hype on BookTube about it and just didn't care for it. So personally, I would skip it. I do think there are better mysteries out there, but let's talk about these because the TV show came out and obviously everyone lost it, myself included, Shadow and Bone. So the Grisha Trilogy, and then there's also the Six of Crows duology. The TV show kind of mixed both of them together. So let's talk about them. I went into the Grisha Trilogy with low expectations just because I had heard a lot of hype on BookTube, but I had heard that it wasn't as good as Six of Crows duology. And I ended up enjoying it more than I expected because of the low expectations. I do think you get a lot more background than even the TV show for the magic system, which is my favorite part in both of these things, to be honest. Both of these books, it's the best part. You get a lot of background for that, a lot of world building. I enjoyed the characters. I do think Mal kind of sucks in this trilogy. I'm just gonna say it. TV show Mal is like so much better than book Mal. I really did not care for the love interest in here at all in the whole trilogy. I do think the first book is by far the best one in the trilogy, so I would recommend you at least read the first book before you go in the Six of Crows duology. Otherwise you kind of miss out a lot really on, again, the world building and the magic system. You will still miss a little bit if you don't read the 2 other books, but you definitely at least need to read the first one. Everyone seems to like agree or disagree about that, but I think it's a must. So it's worth the hype if you have enjoyed the show and you just want more details. As far as the Six of Crows duology, unpopular opinion, I don't care for it as much as other people. I love the characters. I definitely think this is by far the best part of it. I do think actually Kaz is much better in the book than a TV show. So kind of giving you an idea. I'm really curious to see more of their story in the TV show in the next season though. The magic system was underutilized in here like by far, and I really didn't care about the coup that they were trying to like do, their mission. Didn't care for it. So if you are someone that loves character-driven story, definitely check it out. Or if you've seen the TV show and you want more of them, definitely check it out. Otherwise, it's not my favorite fantasy out there. Another one that I've seen a lot, A Little Life, which everyone is always crying, I feel like, when they talk about this book, and myself included. I do not cry when I read books, like very rarely. Sometimes, you know, a little tear in my eyes maybe, but like not bawling. This book, I keep saying how the last 100 pages, I would put the book down every 10 pages because I couldn't deal with it. I would just want to start crying. It is a very, very sad book. Again, something that people will have very different opinions on. You will either love it or absolutely hate it. I've been calling it like torture porn. This story is just so sad, like you can't be prepared for it. Definitely look up trigger warnings, by the way, because everything you can think of pretty much is in here. But you're following 4 friends who meet in university in New York, and then you see, you know, their whole life story. And it's sad. Like when you think things can't get worse, they do. So it's difficult, but I personally think it was worth it. I personally really enjoyed it. Do think it's worth the hype, but there's definitely a chance that you will hate it. But yes, personally, beautifully written, one of my favorite books of all time. Definitely something that actually made me cry. I have seen the ACOTAR series everywhere. Also, personally, I only own the second one. I got rid of the other ones. I probably should get rid of this one too. I do think the second book is by far the best one. But this is a fantasy, like new adult fantasy series. Personally, I think this is a romance series in a fantasy world, and if that's something that you enjoy, usually romance, you might enjoy this. Personally, I'm more of someone that enjoys fantasy with a little bit of romance, more than the opposite. So, not really something I cared about. I think the first book was so ridiculous for me. I just really didn't care for the romance. I talked about it with other people that I knew in person that have read it, and they really loved the romance, and I was questioning my sanity. And then when I got to the second book, I questioned their sanity, and I much prefer this one. I do think also there's a few great friendships in the second book. It's definitely feeling more like a fantasy, but there's just so many cringy scenes, so many cringy sex scenes, and it's just not for me. So personally, I don't think it's worth it. But I'm fully aware that this is the unpopular opinion. So if you're someone that really loves romance, you will probably like it. If you don't, skip it. An absolutely remarkable thing by Hank Green, which you've probably seen him on TikTok. I know I have. And I do think this is worth the hype. I think it's a very accessible sci-fi. I feel like as a genre, it can be very intimidating. I talk about it a lot on this channel just because I want to make it more beginner friendly. And this one is a perfect way to begin if you are someone that usually reads more like contemporaries, or even if you are someone that reads more YA and you want to get into adult books. This is super accessible. It's great. I really enjoyed that one. I ended up making it to my most surprising reads of the year it came out. Definitely worth it. You're following this young woman who kind of accidentally ends up becoming the ambassador between aliens and humans, and it's a lot of fun. Definitely do recommend it. Do want to mention also that the main character isn't super likable, but it's supposed to be that way, just as a warning, because I know some people don't like to read from point of views that aren't like super likable, but I enjoyed it. I've seen The Invisible Life of Addie Larue literally everywhere by Schwab. Yes, worth the hype. Again, some people didn't care for it. I really like the writing. I definitely think this is actually the best book the author wrote ever. You're following this woman who ends up making a deal with the devil, and she becomes immortal. Fantastic. Absolutely loved it. On the other end of the spectrum, I've seen a lot of people talk about The Cruel Prince, which I think is a super forgettable book. If you want another kind of dystopian with fairies, world, fantasy Y, maybe you want to read it, but personally, I read it, completely forgot about it. It's just nothing special. I've also seen this one a ton, and it is Debodai at the End by Adam Silvera. This is something I would recommend to someone that enjoys YA contemporary with LGBTQ plus representation, maybe something that is more coming of age. This is a dystopian version of a world where people get a text message whenever it's their last day. So they get to enjoy it, they get to connect with other people on that app that are also living their last day. So it starts really sad with that premise. You know it's going to be sad. I overall did enjoy it. I do think maybe I'm too old for it. I feel like I would have enjoyed it more if I had been a teenager. So if you are still like younger teenager or maybe like young adult, you will probably enjoy this. It's definitely a really quick read too. So if you want to feel sad and cry a little bit, I do think this is worth the hype. Personally, kind of ambivalent about it. Last but not least, I started seeing that book on TikTok and I personally love it. So needed to talk about it. And it is The Midnight Library by Haig. Love him as an author. I think this is a really fantastic book. It's a super quick read. You're following this woman who is suicidal. She's depressed, and one day she ends up attempting, and she is stuck between life and death and goes to this midnight library where she gets to try different version of her lives. Every book basically is a different version if she had made different decisions, and she gets the chance to try a few different ones kind of to see if her regrets are something that she shouldn't be regretting, and it goes into that. I personally really enjoyed it. Really quick read. Again, it's about 300 pages, but you can read this in one day. Actually, don't start it late at night. You will regret that decision. So totally worth the hype. just starting to get some, but worth the hype. So these were all the books that I've seen going around on TikTok that I personally read and wanted to let you know my opinion. Obviously, if you have read any of these, please let me know in the comment section your personal thoughts. I want to know. Thumbs up, subscribe. I will be putting more videos on the screen that I recommend you check out, and I will see you in my next one very soon. Bye.